Salam sejahtera, anda sedang menyaksikan Niaga AWANI bersama saya Nino Rozman. Dalam segmen ini kami akan berikan tumpuan kepada pelbagai perkembangan terkini niaga dan ekonomi dari tempatan hingga ke antarabangsa. Sudah tentu beberapa hari saja lagi pembentangan Belanjawan 2024 iaitu jatuh pada hari Jumaat, dan sudah tentu banyak tumpuan yang telah kita beri tumpuan, termasuk juga dengan kerajaan terus komited memperkukuhkan ekonomi golongan pertengahan M40 bagi menangani kos sara hidup tinggi menerusi pelbagai inisiatif dalam Belanjawan 2024 yang akan dibentangkan tidak lama lagi. Selain golongan berpendapatan rendah B40, M40 juga antara yang banyak terjejas ketika pandemik COVID-19 melanda negara hingga golongan itu mendapat perhatian kerajaan dalam Belanjawan 2023. Kumpulan pertengahan sebanyak 40% iaitu M40 terutamanya mereka yang membayar cukai yang tinggal di kawasan bandar juga telah menerasai kesan peningkatan kos sara hidup yang melambung. Dan apa sebenarnya harapan kumpulan M40 itu sendiri dan bagaimana wishlist mereka dapat diisi kepada taraf kehidupan yang lebih baik dan juga lestari. Sudah sedia untuk mengulas lebih lanjut bersama tetamu kita Dr. Mio Rashdan Abdullah, merupakan pensyarah Sekolah Perniagaan dan Ekonomi UPM. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Dr. kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama kami. Apa khabar?
Baik, terima kasih kepada Astro AWANI kerana menjemput saya sebagai panel pada pagi ini.
Baik, Doktor, sudah tentu kita selalu mendengar iaitu untuk dapatkan bantuan terhadap B40 sana sini. Namun sejak pandemik COVID-19 kita dapat M40 semakin diberi perhatian. Mungkin Doktor boleh kongsikan dulu apakah cabaran dan senario semasa bagi golongan M40 ini?
Terdapat beberapa cabaran yang dihadapi oleh golongan M40 ini. Mereka juga terkesan, yang pertama mereka juga terkesan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup di mana mereka menghadapi tekanan kewangan akibat peningkatan harga makanan, barangan keperluan harian, kos perumahan dan juga pendidikan. Selain daripada itu, isu pekerjaan juga menjadi cabaran kepada M40 di mana mereka melihat kepada kestabilan pekerjaan dan mencari pekerjaan yang lebih baik yang memberi pulangan pendapatan yang lebih tinggi seiring dengan keadaan ekonomi pada masa ini. Yang ketiga adalah kesihatan dan perkhidmatan kesihatan di mana kos kesihatan yang semakin meningkat, akses kepada perkhidmatan kesihatan yang berkualiti mungkin menjadi cabaran yang besar, terutamanya bagi mereka yang tidak mempunyai perlindungan kesihatan yang mencukupi seperti insurans dan sebagainya. Yang terakhir sekali adalah daripada segi keselamatan pekerjaan dan kestabilan ekonomi. Berikutan ketidaktentuan ekonomi yang tidak menentu, risiko kehilangan pekerjaan merupakan cabaran yang dihadapi yang signifikan bagi golongan M40. Mereka memerlukan strategi kewangan yang lebih baik untuk menangani peningkatan perbelanjaan dalam ketidaktentuan ekonomi pada masa ini.
Bercakap mengenai kesihatan, kita tahu golongan B40 dan M40 apa yang kita telah nampak sewaktu pandemik COVID-19 juga adalah antara kumpulan yang berisiko untuk kehilangan punca pendapatan sekiranya terlibat dalam kemalangan ataupun apa-apa kejadian yang tidak diingini. Baru-baru ini Persatuan Takaful Malaysia MTA berharap agar kerajaan dapat memperluaskan lagi tawaran inisiatif pelan pelindungan takaful yang berpatutan dan bersesuaian kepada golongan B40 dan M40 dalam Belanjawan 2024. Bagaimana inisiatif ini pada pandangan Dr. Mio sendiri, ia dapat membantu M40 untuk meningkatkan lagi strategi kewangan mereka?
Pada pendapat saya, saranan persatuan ini merupakan satu usul yang penting dan harus dipertimbangkan oleh pihak kerajaan dalam penyediaan dan pelaksanaan Belanjawan 2024 ini. Di mana perlindungan takaful yang berpatutan dapat membantu meringankan beban kewangan dan juga memberi jaminan kewangan kepada golongan yang mungkin berisiko daripada kehilangan punca pendapatan akibat kemalangan dan situasi yang tidak diingini. Pada pendapat saya beberapa kelebihan dan aspek yang perlu dipertimbangkan, termasuk perlindungan kewangan itu sendiri, akses kepada perlindungan, kesesuaian kepada kepentingan dan pendidikan dan kesedaran. Seperti contoh yang saya boleh bagi adalah akses kepada perlindungan di mana golongan B40 dan M40 perlu diberikan akses yang lebih mudah dan menyeluruh kepada pelan pelindungan takaful yang ada. Langkah-langkah untuk menyebarkan maklumat dan memudahkan pendaftaran ini amat penting dan perlu digalakkan oleh pihak kerajaan.
Selain itu, bagaimana pula dengan kita bercakap M40 adalah antara yang mereka membayar cukai, memberi sumbangan kepada ekonomi. Bercakap mengenai rebate cukai-cukai ini, bagaimana pandangan Dr. Mia melihat iaitu rebate terhadap cukai ataupun pengurusan cukai ini juga dapat membantu golongan M40 ini?
Kita melihat kepada penggumalan rebate cukai ini dapat meringankan beban kewangan yang dihadapi oleh golongan M40 di mana perbelanjaan mereka amat tinggi daripada segi pendidikan. Mereka perlu berbelanja untuk kos sara hidup mereka dan selain daripada itu kerajaan juga boleh memastikan rebat cukai ini diagihkan secara saksama dalam golongan M40 melalui penggubalan kriteria yang lebih sistematik, perhitungan berdasarkan pendapatan sebenar, saringan semula, kajian semula dan penambahbaikan program dan juga kempen kesedaran dan pendidikan.
Jadi mungkin Dr. Mia boleh kongsikan apakah harapan golongan M40 untuk Belanjawan 2024 ini yang akan dibentangkan beberapa hari saja lagi dan sejauh manakah jangkaan atau harapan doktor untuk Belanjawan kali ini?
Untuk bagi saya pendapat harapan untuk golongan M40 ini yang pertama sekali terutamanya adalah kos sara hidup yang terkawal lah, right? Harapan utama golongan M40 mungkin melihat kepada strategi-strategi yang boleh mengawal dan mengendalikan peningkatan kos sara hidup daripada pihak kerajaan, terutamanya dalam hal isu harga makanan, barangan keperluan harian, perumahan dan serta pendidikan. Selain daripada itu, mereka juga mengharapkan bantuan kewangan dan insentif. Mereka juga terkesan dengan kos sara hidup dan sebagainya, kesan daripada pandemik COVID-19. Pemberian bantuan kewangan tambahan dan insentif ekonomi boleh meringankan beban kewangan dan meningkatkan kuasa pembelian golongan M40. Yang terakhir, mungkin kita boleh lihat harapan M40 daripada segi pendidikan dan latihan pembangunan kemahiran, di mana pelaburan dalam sistem pendidikan dan pembangunan kemahiran boleh meningkatkan kelayakan golongan M40 serta kemahiran mereka. Ini dapat memberikan mereka peluang pekerjaan yang lebih baik. Seperti contoh seperti yang diwar-warkan oleh Kementerian Ekonomi di mana kita ada inisiatif akademi dalam industri. Mungkin inisiatif ini boleh diperluaskan kepada industri lain serta golongan-golongan pendapatan yang lebih tinggi sedikit.
Baik, kita berharap keperluan M40 itu terus dijaga dan tidak diketepikan kerana mereka juga adalah antara golongan yang terkesan, rentan dan kita berharap daripada dokumen tahunan Belanjawan 2024 ini mampu meningkatkan lagi kehidupan dan kesejahteraan hidup mereka. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada Dr. Mia dan Abdullah merupakan pensyarah Sekolah Perniagaan dan Ekonomi UPM. Semua ini akan kami rangkumkan dalam astro.awani.com dan semua platform digital Astro Awani. 2 hari lagi menjelang pembantangan Belanjawan Madani 2024, Astro Awani ingin mendapatkan pandangan anda menerusi kaji selidik #Suara Malaysia. Semalam kami bertanyakan sediakah anda sekiranya kerajaan laksanakan subsidi bersasar. Sebanyak 850 responden memberikan pandangan mereka sehingga jam 6 petang semalam. 52% responden menyatakan kesediaan jika kerajaan laksanakan subsidi bersasar dalam Belanjawan kali ini. Manakala 36% responden pula menyatakan belum bersedia. Sementara itu 12% responden pula tidak pasti. Untuk soalan hari ini, kami ingin tahu pandangan anda. Bantuan apa yang diperlukan oleh remaja dan belia? 3 pilihan jawapan diberikan, bantuan tunai, rebate dalam talian atau pakej berbayar. Kami juga menggunakan tanda pagar #Suara Malaysia di media sosial bagi mengikuti segala komen dan pandangan anda tentang isu yang diutarakan. Apa yang perlu anda buat? Tonton segmen berita kami di saluran 501 Awani dan imbas kod QR yang tertera untuk mengakses soalan yang disediakan atau layari undi.astroawani.com.
Laporan Ketua Audit Negara mendapati Lembaga Tabung Angkatan Tentera LTAT membuat pelaburan berjumlah 6.75 bilion ringgit, melebihi 39.1% daripada had ditetapkan. Beliau berkata, mengikut Akta Tabung Angkatan Tentera, LTAT boleh melabur tidak kurang daripada 70% dalam pelaburan yang dibenarkan oleh atau mengikut Akta Pemegang Amanah 1949. 6 pertubuhan bukan kerajaan NGO dalam industri rokok elektronik atau vape akan menyerahkan satu memorandum kepada Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim meminta agar pandangan mereka disertakan dalam rang undang-undang kawalan produk merokok demi kesihatan awam 2023 atau Dasar Generasi Penamat GEG. Langkah itu akan dilakukan selepas mereka mendakwa mereka disisihkan Kementerian Kesihatan KKM daripada memberikan sebarang pandangan. Pusat Operasi Teknikal Subang High-Tech Maxis ialah tapak rangkaian telekomunikasi pertama di Malaysia yang dianugerahkan sijil ISO 14001-2015 Sistem Pengurusan Alam Sekitar EMS oleh Sirim Kas International. Pensijilan ini mengiktiraf perancangan, reka bentuk, operasi dan penyelenggaraan peralatan dan kemudahan di tapak rangkaian tersebut. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astro.com serta dagangnews.com.
Bebaskan rambut saya. Ya, lakukannya. Walau apa pun anda lakukan, jangan risau. Sunset baharu dengan vitamin C, minyak argan dan elastin dalam Active Infusion untuk rambut lembut mengurai dengan haruman berpanjangan. Bebaskan rambut cantik anda dengan Sunset baharu.
Itu bukan cara nak nyanyi, adik. Jilat Flexi Vibe, kepala fleksibel. Cukup sekali terus licin. Cukup sekali terus licin, tak kecoh. Jilat Flexi Vibe.
Penjelajahan diteruskan. Kali ini, ianya lebih sengit. Satu regimen yang meninggalkan kesan mendalam. Dan satu peluang untuk membuktikan kehebatan. Rasai bahagia. Arctic Open secara langsung di Astro Supersport dan Astro Go.
Syarikat Bersekutu Khazanah Nasional Berhad Pulau Kapas Ventures Sediam Berhad PKV mengumumkan pelupusan strategik kepentingan tidak langsungnya dalam Time.com Berhad. Tanah Kekayaan Negara itu berkata PKV, instrumen pelaburan yang dikawal oleh Global Transit International Sediam Berhad GTI, telah melaksanakan penempatan 67.5 juta saham Time mewakili 3.7% daripada jumlah saham Time.
Ia berkata semua hasil daripada pelaksanaan penempatan itu akan terakru kepada khazanah dan berikutan penempatan itu PKV akan mempunyai pegangan kira-kira 25.1% dalam Time berbanding 28.8% sebelumnya. Kata khazanah, hasil daripada pelaksanaan ini, pegangan GTI dalam PKV akan terus meningkat dan GTI akan kekal komited sepenuhnya terhadap pertumbuhan jangka panjang Time. Pengarah Urusan Khazanah Datuk Amirul Faizal Wan Zahir berkata, sejak bermulanya kerjasama khazanah dengan GTI, Time telah mempamerkan pertumbuhan yang teguh dan baru-baru ini mencapai modal pasaran melepasi 10 bilion ringgit buat kali pertama pada Februari 2023. Dengan ini, pelaksanaan pengewangan dijalankan pada masa yang tepat, memandangkan prestasi dan pulangan harga saham Time yang sangat baik berikutan kejayaan perkongsian ini. Meskipun pihaknya bakal menamatkan perkongsian dengan GTI melalui PKV, khazanah katanya akan memulakan perjalanan yang baru dan akan terus menyokong GTI dalam usaha berterusannya bersama Time.
Kedudukan pelaburan kerajaan berjumlah 35.15 bilion ringgit pada akhir 2022, berkurangan 8.24 bilion ringgit atau 19% daripada RM43.39 bilion pada 2021. Menurut laporan Ketua Audit Negara LKAN, sebanyak 68.7% daripada pelaburan kerajaan adalah daripada dana kumpulan wang amanah negara KWAN dan kumpulan wang amanah lain dengan jumlah keseluruhan sebanyak RM24.15 bilion. Manakala sejumlah RM11 bilion atau 31.3% pula merupakan pelaburan daripada lebihan akaun hasil disatukan. Pada 2022, hasil persekutuan pula berjumlah RM294.36 bilion, manakala perbelanjaan mengurus sebelum pindahan ke kumpulan wang pembangunan berjumlah RM292.69 bilion. Sementara itu, akaun hasil disatukan mencatatkan lebihan hasil berjumlah RM1.66 bilion, iaitu berkurangan sebanyak RM0.572 bilion atau 25.6% berbanding RM2.236 bilion pada 2021. Menurut LKAN, keseluruhan amaun lebihan ini telah dipindahkan ke kumpulan wang pembangunan dan baki akaun hasil disatukan kekal berjumlah RM11.863 bilion. Pada akhir 2022, kedudukan pelaburan KWAN berjumlah RM14.47 bilion iaitu 41.2% daripada keseluruhan pelaburan kerajaan dan merekodkan peningkatan sejumlah RM0.583 bilion atau 42% berbanding RM13.89 bilion pada 2021. Lapor LKAN, peningkatan baki pelaburan antaranya disebabkan oleh terimaan dana daripada syarikat petroleum nasional Berhad Petronas berjumlah RM500 juta serta terimaan faedah dan dividen yang dilaburkan semula. Pada akhir 2022, kedudukan pelaburan kumpulan wang amanah lain berjumlah RM9.678 bilion iaitu 27.5% daripada keseluruhan pelaburan kerajaan, berkurangan sebanyak RM12.800 bilion atau 57% berbanding RM22.475 bilion pada 2021. Sementara itu, nilai buku pelaburan kerajaan berjumlah RM34.03 bilion meningkat RM0.168 bilion atau 0.5% berbanding RM33.86 bilion pada 2021. Pada 2022, pegangan kepentingan kerajaan dalam syarikat digital nasional Berhad meningkat kepada 500 juta unit saham biasa bernilai RM1 seunit. Pada masa yang sama, pegangan kepentingan kerajaan sebanyak 131 juta unit saham keutamaan kumulatif boleh tebus dalam syarikat bekalan air Selangor Sdn Berhad telah dibuat penebusan. Kerajaan juga mempunyai pegangan kepentingan dalam 3 syarikat yang masih dalam proses penggulungan iaitu Malaysia Batik and Handicraft Berhad sebanyak 300,001 unit saham biasa, Malaysian Airlines System Berhad sebanyak 1 unit saham keutamaan dan Medical Online Sdn Berhad sebanyak 1 unit saham keutamaan. Pada 2022, dividen pelaburan yang diterima daripada 16 syarikat dan 2 badan berkanun berjumlah RM55.815 bilion meningkat RM23.60 bilion atau 73.3% daripada RM32.21 bilion pada 2021. Pengurangan penerimaan dividen yang ketara adalah daripada syarikat Khazanah Nasional Berhad dan pembinaan BLT Sdn Berhad yang berkurangan masing-masing sebanyak RM2.500 bilion dan RM14 juta berbanding dividen RM3.026 bilion pada 2021.
Universiti Teknologi Mara UiTM menanggung kerugian berjumlah RM58.57 juta selepas ramai penerima beasiswa yang menandatangani perjanjian ke peringkat Doktor Falsafah PhD dan Sarjana gagal mencapai objektif ditetapkan. Ketua Audit Negara Datuk Wan Suraya Wan Muhammad Razi berkata, audit pada 2021 mendapati potensi kerugian UiTM terhadap ganti rugi belum tuntut adalah berjumlah RM51.08 juta. Jabatan Perangkaan Malaysia DOSM dan Unitar International University telah memeterai memorandum persefahaman MOU teruka kerjasama dalam penganalisan data, penyelidikan perkongsian hasil analisis serta penemuan baru. Ketua Perangkawan Malaysia Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin berkata, MOU tersebut juga melaksanakan kerjasama berkaitan penyelidikan dan perkongsian ilmu dalam bidang statistik, pembekalan, penyimpanan dan pertukaran maklumat dan peningkatan mutu maklumat rasmi seperti yang tertakluk oleh undang-undang yang akan dipersetujui bersama. Laporan Ketua Audit Negara LKN mendapati SME Corporation Malaysia tidak membelanjakan baki geran program SME Investment Partner SIP berjumlah RM16.73 juta. Perkara itu dikesan Jabatan Audit Negara yang melakukan pengauditan pematuhan terhadap perbelanjaan geran pembangunan program SIP dan program Going Export GoEx oleh SME Corp. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astro.com serta dagannews.com.
Lazimnya, sektor pertanian diceburi golongan berusia dan dilakukan secara tradisional. Namun kini dengan pelbagai teknik dan kaedah yang lebih memudahkan, bidang pertanian antara pilihan generasi muda negara. Misalnya di Parit Mohayat Pontian Johor, anak muda berusia 28 tahun, jadikan pertanian sebagai sumber pendapatan utama sejak 3 tahun lalu.
Muhammad Lokman Kumasi menjadikan bidang pertanian pilihan utama selepas mengambil keputusan berhenti kerja di Singapura ekoran pandemik COVID-19 yang lalu. Lepasan Diploma Electrical Universiti Kuala Lumpur ini bermula hanya setengah ekar menanam peria menggunakan kaedah fertigasi. Kini mempunyai 2 ekar tanaman peria hijau yang ditanam dalam 6,100 polybag. Katanya bidang pertanian memberi kelebihan tersendiri terutama dari sudut masa dan nilai pendapatan. Walaupun bermandi peluh dan memerah keringat di kebun sayur, ternyata berbakti kepada tanah mampu memberi pulangan lumayan apabila satu polybag berhijau boleh mengeluarkan hingga 8 kg hasil bergantung kepada keadaan cuaca, penjagaan dan pemberian baja yang sesuai.
Setiap tanaman tu ada kelebihan dan kekurangan masing-masing. Contoh saya kalau nak dibandingkan, kalau kita nak melayan setiap jenis sayur tu sama, tidak, sebab setiap sayur tu ada kerenah masing-masing. Jadi apa-apa pada saya lah, kalau kita nak menceburi satu bidang tu, yang penting adalah ilmu. Ilmu maksudnya macam mana kita nak kawal dia, macam mana kita nak kontrol dia punya penyakit, serangga. Sebab setiap pokok tu lain-lain serangga. So jenis teknik kawalan pun lain-lain. So apa-apa pun yang menjadi asas kepada satu tanaman tu ialah ilmu kita lah. Ilmu kita, macam mana kita nak mengawal dia, macam mana kita nak pemberian bajanya, berapa kadarnya, macam itu. Antara trend untuk anak muda, ramai yang menceburi fertigasi, tak kisah kadar kecil atau kadar besar. Tapi teknik ni memang sangat mudah kalau dibanding dengan tanah, sebab dia punya panggil apa, untuk proses tanam balik dan permulaan dia tu sangat mudah banding dengan tanah, sebab dia kalau tanah memerlukan satu masa untuk penyediaan tanah itu. Kalau banding dengan fertigasi, setelah habis kita langsung boleh tanam dengan beberapa proses yang diperlukan tapi tak mengambil masa yang lama.
Katanya peria hijau, peria katak, peria bangla, timun dan terung menjadi pilihan kerana harganya lebih stabil antara RM3 hingga RM7 sekilogram. Peria hijau mengambil masa 50 hari untuk dituai dan tempoh tuaian hasil boleh berjalan sehingga 2 bulan. Selain penjagaan dan ilmu, perancangan masa juga penting agar pengeluaran hasil tidak terputus. Ini kerana Lokman akui pertaniannya pernah alami kerugian hampir RM40,000 2 tahun lalu apabila buah perianya yang matang rosak. Namun, ia tidak mematahkan semangat petani muda ini untuk terus maju ke depan, memasarkan produk kepada pemborong sekitar air hitam, batu pahat dan gulai. Berhasrat menjadikan proses memetik hasil kebun seperti di Australia sebagai kandungan media sosial, Lokman turut memasang internet di kawasan kebunnya agar penggunaan media sosial dapat diguna secara optimum.
Baru-baru ini timbul kekeliruan tentang bayar guna duit now QR akan ada charge tambahan pada pengguna dan membebankan peniaga kecil. Sebenarnya tidak betul. Kekeliruan yang timbul itu susulan laporan yang tidak tepat dan tidak lengkap sehingga mencalarkan reputasi Paynet. Jangan risau, saya bantu anda untuk faham perkara ini. Pertama, berkenaan e-pembayaran yang dibuat oleh pelanggan kepada mana-mana peniaga. Pelanggan tidak dikenakan sebarang charge. Peniaga selalunya dikenakan apa yang dipanggil kadar diskaun pedagang atau Merchant Discount Rate MDR. Ini bukan satu charge baru dan wujud di mana-mana negara yang menggunakan e-pembayaran. Ia di-charge berdasarkan peratusan nilai transaksi setiap pembayaran dibuat. Seorang peniaga akan menerima pembayaran yang dibuat oleh pelanggan mereka selepas ditolak MDR. Pada masa ini, pembayaran kad debit dan kredit dikenakan MDR, manakala terdapat penepian atau waiver MDR pada pembayaran QR. Mulai 1 Oktober 2023, penepian MDR untuk pembayaran QR Duit Now ini telah ditarik balik. Mulai tarikh itu, para pemeroleh boleh mula mengenakan caj MDR tersebut dan ia termasuk caj PayNet sebanyak 0.25%. Bagaimana dengan para peniaga kecil? Jangan risau, menurut PayNet, dana rizab bakal diwujudkan oleh PayNet untuk memberi insentif kepada pemeroleh supaya tidak mengenakan sebarang MDR kepada para peniaga kecil. Adakah anda sebagai peniaga kecil bakal dikenakan MDR? Rujuk kepada pemeroleh anda. Sebilangan besar pemeroleh bank dan bukan bank mengesahkan mereka tidak akan mengecaj MDR tersebut. Namun, adakah anda tahu yang Malaysia adalah antara negara terakhir mengenakan MDR untuk pembayaran QR dan kadar dikenakan adalah antara terendah? Kedua, ada juga kekeliruan berkaitan yuran 50 sen untuk pembayaran QR sekiranya ia melebihi RM5,000. Ini tidak benar. Sebenarnya, caj itu dikenakan untuk pemindahan dana rakan ke rakan atau peer-to-peer daripada QR pribadi ke QR pribadi lain, bukan pembayaran kepada peniaga. Ini sama sekali tidak berkaitan dengan pembayaran QR kepada pedagang. Kedua-dua yuran tidak akan dikenakan untuk transaksi yang sama dalam apa-apa situasi. Tapi, Bank Negara Malaysia BNM juga telah mengesahkan bahawa bank-bank utama dan penyedia perkhidmatan kewangan bukan bank akan mengecualikan yuran transaksi untuk perniagaan mikro dan kecil yang menerima pembayaran Duit Now QR. Selain itu, perniagaan menggunakan Duit Now QR sebagai kaedah pembayaran juga tidak perlu menanggung kos berulang untuk penyewaan terminal tempat jualan POS bagi saluran pembayaran berasaskan kad atau kos overhead dan tambahan pentadbiran untuk pengendalian pembayaran tunai. Di samping itu, PayNet akan memperuntukkan sumber untuk membantu membiayai kos yang ditanggung oleh pemeroleh yang terus menawarkan pengecualian penuh kepada perniagaan mikro dan kecil yang menerima pembayaran Duit Now QR. Duit Now QR kekal sebagai kaedah pembayaran yang berpatutan serta kos efektif. Jadi, jangan risau, teruskan transaksi kewangan anda secara digital.
Macam betul je kan? Cerita sebenarnya, kerap pakai getah rambut tebal dan ketat, kalau tak dijaga, rambut boleh gugur. Dove Micellar Baharu kini mengandungi vitamin biotin untuk rambut 10 kali lebih kuat.
Voice kali ini dah macam bukan pertandingan nyanyian, dah macam pertandingan jenayah dah.
Aku terima kau yang dulu, tapi aku tak boleh terima kau yang lepas ni.
Dia tu baik tau.
Sibuk, backup berkira tu.
Anak aku mana?
Kau jaga anak aku sekali ke hospital.
Kalau I tak ada jin, I lost, I lost. I rasa you ada problem.
$1 million goal.
Stream di Astro dan On Demand.
Kita orang benci kriket. Cikgu yang pasal kita main. Patut je kalau pack game main ni, kita dah tak payah dah nak main kriket bodoh ni.
Thanks for joining us. My name is Ibrahim Sani. I am currently at the MDV's office, Malaysian Debt Ventures office, here to speak to the chairman of MDV. He's also the MP for Subang, YB Wong Chen. Wong Chen has always been a spokesperson for PKR and of course Pakatan Harapan, as well as Pakatan Rakyat before this on budget. So it's actually quite timely for us to talk on not just about the budget, but of course his role in MDV as well. YB, thanks again for taking the time to speak with us. Maybe we can walk through with us with the key topics of the day.
Okay, yeah. I totally agree. This is the first ever budget. I would say that the earlier budget in February was not really. It was the old budget that we had to adopt. So as you know, Madani has 6 core principles. It's sustainability, it's prosperity, innovation, respect, trust, and also compassion. But in terms of the budget issue, you would probably look at the issue regarding sustainability, innovation mostly. Yeah, mostly. Trust and respect, all those are kind of political. So to me, the budget will focus primarily on this new energy transition roadmap, NETR. It's also our redesigning the economy to be more greener, to be more sustainable, and with a longer term target of, you know, of getting net zero. Personally, I would like to see it much faster, but we do understand the economy needs some time to reshape itself. But let's hit the major motherhood statements and the major core principle, and then work towards the budget issue, which is always operating and development expenditure.
You know, you touched on a very important point. Achieving long-term sustainable goals and objectives versus the as-is demand of today. That has always been the Prime Minister or Finance Minister that is going to be presenting the budget. How do you think this Finance Minister is going to balance that whole idea of operational and development budget expenditure versus trying to get things done today and achieving the long-term goals that you guys set to do?
Well, in reality, we are restricted by the fiscal position. As you know, the debt is 1.6 trillion. Servicing the debt is going to hit about 40 to 50 billion alone, just on the interest rate alone. So when governments talk about having operating budget and spending more on DVAX and scaling back operating, it's hard to do so. That is a known fact. In particular, if we have a heavy subsidy system that we have inherited, then if you cut subsidies, people are suffering. If you want to spur the economy, you need to develop. But in order to develop, you need to cut subsidies so that you can release some money for development spending. So I think what will really happen in this particular one is to set the perimeters and give the clear indication which direction we're going. So the absolutely clear one from my friend Rafizi and also PMX is that they're going to have a targeted subsidy scheme, right? So the subsidy is about 60, 70, 80, potentially 90 billion, depending on the price of oil. Then a targeted system could reduce it by 20%. So if you reduce 20%, say the subsidy is at normal of 40, 50 billion, 20% of that is basically 10 billion, then you got 10 billion extra to move towards development expenditure.
You know, just yesterday, Rafizi was talking about this whole idea of T20, M40, B40 restructuring, particularly on the Pangkalan Data Utama or PADU that is going to be developing this understanding of how we're going to classify people. Do you feel that these kind of items are actually quite critical for us to understand?
Oh, absolutely. Brother, I mean, you go anywhere in the world, people talk about data-driven policy making. Our data is rubbish. You know, the previous governments have not worked on data too often. They've been collecting data, ministry has been collecting data for the longest time. They've never collated and then compiled into one major database. And then, you know, I suppose in the previous governments, they were working in silos. You know, this is what they always say. PADU is meant to bring everything in. And if we use the proper algorithm, we can actually put in elements of behavioral economics, not just data-driven economics. Then you merge these two, behavioral economics and the big data that you collate, you can get a clearer picture. I mean, to the extent that you can know. So for instance, like a 28-year-old woman in Kuala Terengganu, what are her priorities? What are her earnings? You can actually project, even without collecting the data, you can actually paint a picture, what is her options, how she's spending. But of course, direct interviews, collecting more and more data is better. Now, once we have that big data, which we must protect at all costs, then you can say, okay, this particular community needs more, right? This group of people who are poorer needs more. Then you can really plan it. Then it becomes really targeted.
So as you can see, I'm bringing a few elements here. Targeted data, trying to get behavioral economics into place, trying to understand unit economics of each and every single individual in this country so that we can get our targeted subsidies in order, so that we can bring our fiscal position to a better level. Of course, one of the key positions of Madani is trying to bring the fiscal deposit to 3.5%, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, over the next 3 years. Do you feel that all these ingredients are in place and we're seeing things in the process? Are you happy with the development of this government?
No, I think it's absolutely right. You've got to collect data first. So data will be the main thing, right? But the theme for next year will be renewable energy. That is quite clear. Then that is trying to drive us towards, you know, reinventing around 10 to 20% of the economy to be really renewable. And the spillover is humongous. So let's start with data first. If you agree that we're going to spend X amount, this is where we have to ask the minister, how much are they going to really spend on this data collection? And if the quality data is so good, then it makes all our expenditure, allocation of funding to be precise, and therefore no wastage. I think the spillover could be around 10-20 billion in savings even. Of course, how to manage subsidy reduction, how to get to this 3.5% deficit, right? A healthy deficit level requires implementation. I mean, fundamentally, data-driven implementation. Then, you know, it has to. Some people may lose out. Right? For instance, I mean, you know, if a person in KL with a BMW is getting subsidized fuel, subsidized petrol, of course he's going to be very angry by the time we figure out that he has a BMW, doesn't need subsidy.
But one would argue that the disposable income of such an individual may not necessarily be so much big if you actually calculate the debt versus the income of the individual.
No, precisely. I do know. But we can't tap into his financial data. That's wrong, right? Okay, so we're making guesses on big data collection. But he must also understand he should scale down to a smaller car if he can't afford, right? So it's just that the government needs to make sure that we're not subsidizing the super rich.
Yeah.
Typical, I mean, a very simple analogy. You know, if you're a Grab rider, you're delivering food, you use a motorbike, food tank is 5, 6, 7 ringgit, right? You probably need for the entire year, not entire year, the entire month, probably a budget of around 50 bucks at most, even as a rider. But a BMW owner comes in there, pumps in, is 120 bucks, 140 bucks. Per pump, and that's, you know, 450, 500 ringgit a month. So the current subsidy scheme gives 500 subsidy to the BMW guy, but only gives 50 bucks to the people that actually need more. So when you remove those layer, and we're not saying that middle class people will be hit to, you know, zero. It's just we need to know the right sweet spot, right? So we can reduce maybe 100, 200 for the BMW owner, and move up the $50 subsidy to the poor to that 100 extra.
Are you expecting this budget to elucidate further the subsidy rationalization, or you think that's still going to be discussed down the road?
No, I would like to see the initial start of it, right? Because you can't really start the subsidy without data. You know, if we collect the data, we collate the data earlier, say within 6 months, because first you got to approve the budget to collate data, and then you roll out data. You get 6 months data. Is not, some data can be pretty fixed, but you know, you got to factor in holidays, spending patterns, you know, things external, sending money overseas. Like for instance, like in September, all the parents are scratching their head how to send out money to foreign students, right?
Yeah, me too.
You too.
Literally, yeah.
So we need the entire year data, but it doesn't mean that we have to wait for the entire year. We can start with 6 months. So you will see the rationalizing of subsidy, I would imagine, to start in June, July.
Okay. Wow, June, July next year.
Yeah, if they start to collect the first 6 months, first they get a budget. The budget kicks in 1st January. Then they have the budget to collect data, right? So they'll get 3 months data, 3 months data. So even if the 3 months data for core basic issues, for especially poor people not sending kids out in September to go to UK, right now. Yeah, they're not planning a holiday to Japan or Disneyland. So even the 3 months or 6 months data is good enough for you to tinker around with subsidy adjustment.
That would still mean the government needs to allocate maybe 40 to 50 billion of subsidy, at least for the first half of the year, assuming we don't do data.
Yeah. So I don't see a shock system. I see, like, you know, middle class has to come down and understand, right? So they also need time to adjust their lifestyle. But more importantly, we have to help the poor. And that's the point of Madani government. For too long, the B40, now B60, right? I think it's tough, you know. I mean, there are so many global pressure, hyperinflation, global issue. All these issues are really hitting the people. And the government has fiscal constraint. So what we need to do is we need to adjust those people who are taking most of the subsidies and reduce some of these and push it down to the lower level.
You were mentioning just now about the 10 to 20 catalytic industries, so to speak, when it comes to energy transition. But the pressing matter at hand of today, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you, of course that's very important. Climate change is still the number one crisis that we need to tackle. But the everyday concerns include food security. The inflation, if you strip down per sector, telecommunications, inflation has actually gone down. Education has gone up, health has gone up, and food security has gone terribly high.
Yeah, let me take this opportunity to address the issue of food security. Food security, most people get the wrong idea that you have to plant all your food or plant a certain percentage of your own food. Food security essentially is it's a matrix of a few points. Yeah? Point number one is affordability. That is really food security. If food is cheap and people can afford to buy the food, you have 100% food security, right? For instance, noodles. This morning I went to have breakfast with my wife. I paid 22 ringgit for 2 bowls of noodle, right? I mean, this is now normal, you know, for Chinese noodles.
You're an MP of Subang, I presume it's in Subang or...
No, it's not. It's in Sri Atamas. It's not what I call upmarket restaurant. It's just like a typical semi-hawker kind of thing. The corner lot, right? To be fair, I paid for 2 drinks as well. So the noodle is about $8, right? In Singapore, you can go down and pay 3 Sing dollars.
Yeah, actually.
So Singapore has a much better food security than us, but Singapore does not plant anything in substantial amount. They don't have farmland. We have a lot more.
Yeah,
right?
Agriculture for GDP is actually below 1% for Singapore.
So food security is really about affordability, number one. Number two, food security is about, you know, your silos that you can keep food, your storage, your logistics to deliver food. Singapore, no problem, it's just a small state, right? So they are actually ranking very, very high in food security. Malaysia, if we improve logistical things, if we spend more money on ability to ship the pekan, you know, all the food from the rural area, faster, fresher, with better refrigeration, better trucks, you will solve food security issues. You will. You don't need to plant everything. But there is the misunderstanding at many levels, from, you know, ministerial to policymakers, that food security really means we have to grow our own food. So the big argument that I had to look at really was the issue about corn. When we were in the middle of COVID and I was in the National Recovery Council, I had a briefing from, I think Felda, Felkrawan, these people came in and said, oh yeah, YB, don't worry, we're gonna solve food security. Ayam tak cukup, you know, jagung, right? Don't worry, we will grow jagung.
The duck, yeah.
Right now, we'll grow the corn.
Yeah.
Right? Then we don't have to rely on import. I told him, look, if we are good at growing corn, where do I grown it 50 years ago? We're good at rubber. We're good at palm oil, right? All you do is you grow what you're good at and you sell and you trade, you buy corn, you know? But you do need to grow a certain percentage if there's a glut in the world on corn. So what's that percentage? Your own supply. 10-20%. If your pot is very good, the people who have money to buy, it's okay. Food security is not about growing 100% of corn that you need or 50%. It's around 20%.
So the whole idea of SSR for the different types of food, the understanding has to be more comprehensive than looking at the abject number. Like, oh, there you go, 80%, oh, now we're in trouble.
That's right. But because agriculture industry in Malaysia, the sector is full of questions about subsidies, you know, price control, monopolies by you know, by
you've been at it for quite some time on
dismantling
monopoly.
No, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's not an easy thing to change overnight.
Let's talk about the budget. When it comes to agricultural sector and food security, do you think some allocations or some thinking is going to be done in this budget for this sector?
No. To me, again, I think, of course, most politicians, because the people perceive food security to be these kind of issues, right?
Yeah.
That is to plan your thing. I would think that the best way to say, okay, we're going to allocate X amount to increase our supply of things that we're short in terms of food to X target. And that to me is responsible. Then you can make the people feel more secure, even though the reality is we should focus on making people's disposable income better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Then you don't have to worry lah. I mean, if kalau jagung naik 2 sen, 3 sen, 10 sen, 20 sen, your gaji naik berapa ringgit, you can still cover, you know, it's not an insecure food position.
Yeah.
But since people relate food security to planting your own food, allocate lah something for that, so that people punya perception pun dia rasa seronok sikit. It's not necessarily good for policy, but it's is good for the perception and confidence, which is essential for every economy.
Okay, let's look at disposable income since you brought that up. Widening the tax base has always been the key feature of any government. They have failed. Let's face it. Every single point in time until now, they have failed. What makes you think that this budget, this year that's going to be tabled 2 days from now, is going to be a little bit different in terms of the active participation of increasing the tax base?
Okay, increasing the tax base means you have to pay people, more and more people above 3,600 lah. Then they start to pay tax.
Which is consistent with what Rafiz is trying to do with progressive wage policy.
I understand. Rafiz and I work on this policy for a very long time. So I'm fully supportive of what he wants to do. And it's the right thing to do. If you get more people earning 3,600 and above, then they start to pay tax, then the government's revenue becomes much better. At the moment, the personal income tax, we are collecting around 30 to 40 billion a year, right? Which is very small, you know, because only about 15 to 16% of the population actually pay any personal income tax. That means everybody else earning below 3,600. That's shocking now. So the obvious solution is to move up the bottom people, higher grade, higher earnings. And on the economic level, it's very simple. As you earn more for the bottom, right? Say someone's getting 2,000 a month. Now we restructure the whole wage system. Now they're earning 2,005. You know how that 500 come about? The government can go and subsidize the employer 50%, or they can slowly force the employees to pay more. That means the employees earn less, right? When you do that,
you're going to get a lot of hesitancy.
No. My father is a businessman, please.
MEF and all these other people.
No. I understand, but they also need to understand when the poor gets a bump in their pay, they don't go to Disneyland in Paris or, you know, buy the Louis Vuitton shirt or whatever. Do they make shirts? I don't know. You know, but they don't buy luxury things, right? They consume the goods internally in Malaysia. You know, they can't even afford to go to Bangkok.
No, even our station, even leaving the state is a big question mark.
No, it's true. I mean, this is the reality, right? So employers shouldn't complain terribly. I mean, they will complain because they're doing business and the economy is not that great, right? What I'm saying, I'm not suggesting we increase by $500. I'm just telling you, in theory, if you increase $500, the poor people have $500 of disposable income that will recirculate in the local economy. It's not going to Singapore. It's not going to some private bank in Switzerland, right? It stays here. So paying locals the lowest better helps the local producers more business.
You're consistent with what Amir Maidin was talking about. He as an employer can increase his own wages, but that would make him uncompetitive.
That's
right. But if
right.
there is a top-down mandated approach by the government, the industry goes up slowly, then he's okay.
Lord, rather before I became an MP, I was a lawyer, corporate lawyer, and many of my clients are rich people. You know, of course they're happy, but they have their problems. You know, but I keep asking, you know, why do you need another 3 cars or another 5 or another 4 houses, right? You know, for the super rich, I have a few very super rich clients. They're a bit better. You know, they will come and tell me, yeah, you know, I only can play golf once a day. I can only eat 3 meals. You know. So I don't need I can pay people better, right? So we need this kind of enlightened business people to say, yeah, you know, we have to contribute back. You know, I mean, you can't keep oppressing the poorest and expect to live in a secure world, right? I mean, you keep oppressing people, people become desperate, then you go and hire more bodyguards to look after you. Or you live in London, right? You remote control your company here. That shouldn't be the way a good Malaysian, patriotic Malaysian businessman should think in those terms. He must think how to make the country more middle class, everybody elevate upwards.
Okay,
right?
Let's now focus on that whole idea of you consuming more, you raise the B40, then you can, in theory, you can talk more about consumption tax even further. Right now, SST gets about 35 billion. When we had GST 1.0, we were getting about 44 billion with over 20 billion in refunds. Whatever it is, it's still a sizable amount, okay? Do you think GST has to come back as soon as possible? Maybe not in this budget because that's a part, but generally speaking.
Okay, I think the GST is a better tax system, but during Najib's time, they put it at 6% was crazy. You know, I think that was one of the main reasons why he lost the election, other than one MDB and all the other thing, right? But, you know, I thought the GST would be a better system, but we have to reduce it to 3%.
But I thought the collection itself is going to cost the government 1 to 2%. So if you put it at 3, essentially earning net 1.
Yeah, so what you do is, what we learn this is very simple. We look at the Singapore model. I know a lot of people don't like to compare, but they are
I love to compare. I mean, why not?
They are driven on big data. They are policy driven, right? I mean, they are. So you look at how Singapore implemented. If I remember, it was 2%. And then over a period of a year, as the economy grows, then they can find it easier to tax people higher and higher. Now it's probably 9% or something like that. And people don't really complain that much, you know. So again, you start with a low base and you go up and up in tandem with the wage going up. As long as the wages outpace the by 1 or 2%, most people will not complain.
Yeah.
Right? But let me go back to the issue of why we need to pay the poor more wages. It's very simple. Say I work for a shoe factory, and my wages went up by $500. I will go and take my kids go eat KFC, right? The KFC guy got a $500 bum. He's going to buy my shoe. You understand? I eat KFC, he buy my shoe. So this money, when employees pay people and is captured for the poor and rotates in this, circulates in this economy, increases the shoemaker's sales, increases KFC sales. It's really good.
But I don't see anybody opposing this other than the capital owners, other than the business leaders. Is that the reality of things right now?
No, I think business owners, you know, everyone is struggling. You know, the last few months has not been as hot as we thought it would be. You know, we were looking at a recovery from COVID, and then, you know, there's still hyperinflation around the world. So I think business owners are worried. Not to say they're wrong, because they're on the ground. But we need that kind of conversation. And we need to talk to them and say, look, you know, okay, 500 tak boleh lah. But surely $100 can, right? Then they'll say, okay, you pandai sangat, you want to increase 100, you boleh bayar RM50, right? Then the government say, okay, I contribute 50, you contribute 50. Within 6 months of this circular, he'll get back in increased sales in shoes, increased sales in KFC, to get back his $50. But you must hold their hand. You must have a plan. You must talk to them. You must communicate, right? That is crucial to me. But if we cut corruption, we save subsidy, then we can take this money, support the $50.
How does it feel like having the need to criticize your own colleagues right now, being a backbencher?
Well, I am super busy. Okay. I'm the chairman of the...
Speaking of which, yeah.
Yeah, MDV.
So we're doing this in MDV right now, yeah.
So I'm chairman of a select committee on international relations and trade. So I have to travel a lot more outside. My constituents miss me, so God bless them.
One of the largest, in fact.
Yeah, I'm really tired. I've got bags, you know, that some Korean beautician need to sort out. I'm traveling a lot. I also have IPU duty. I've got human rights duty. I've got... yeah, it's a lot, but I am also, you know, I know my fiscal stuff, I know my budget stuff.
Yeah.
So I know Rafizi is trying very hard to restructure things, and it's never easy in a unity government. You know, what is priority? So the unity government really need to sit down and talk amongst themselves more and more. But you know, they are strange bedfellows, and after a year or close to a year, I hope they're better now lah. You know, so I can only see positive things going ahead. You know, for instance, like the UMNO MPs, UMNO ministers will want something, right? They want to focus on a certain sector. The Amanah guys want to do something, and the DP want to do something. So I think it's just getting to know each other more and more. And you can see it from the election results. We are actually doing better.
Yes.
Right? So it shows cohesion of team spirit. Once you have that team spirit done, then you can imagine the years to come, it should be clear.
Final question will be on Sabah Sarawak. They are demanding more right now, rightfully so, in fact, and because of the fact that we've been neglecting them, Semenanjung, for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 decades. And they are now in a position where they are kingmakers, let's face it, right?
Yep.
What's in store for them in this budget, you think?
I think, you know, if Sabah Sarawak asks for more allocation, we can give them more allocation, but we have to, how do we put it? We have to reduce some of it in another way. In other words, so for instance, Sabah Sarawak is very keen on their own education system. And for rightly or wrongly, they have some say, you know. I mean, if they want to recognize, you know, those Chinese certificates, or they want to have more English schools, I think there is some level of freedom there, right? So if they're asking for more autonomy, we can give them, but they've got to take on less budget. For instance, say they're asking for education.
Something has to give, lah, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, lah. So, but the bottom line is, say we have committed to spend 5-10 billion on Sarawak, right, next year, for DVAX or an operating. If they want freedom, it's easier for us to give 10 billion to them, but they make the call. Rather than Putrajaya call and say, oh yeah, this sekolah ni build here, cikgu ni macam ni, curriculum ni macam ni. So I think they'll be happy to get the same amount, but with more autonomy. So that's something that can be negotiated between them. I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of the government. Yeah. But I think that should be able to placate the issue of, you know, underdevelopment on their part, right?
Okay, 3 things that you think the rakyat should look at or look forward to in this budget or keep an eye on.
Well, not the rakyat so much lah. I mean, for I think the one that is important for the technocrats like us, the bankers and people, economists, is of course revenue projection, right? Because, you know, a budget is a projection of the future. If the revenue projection is accurate, then it's easy to meet those budgets. So we will always question, is the government projecting overtly optimistic or pessimistic?
You tend to make a point again and again on this, particularly on corporate tax revenue.
Yeah, you know, absolutely.
You're always over budget.
Yeah, we have to, because look, if the numbers come out again this year and say, look, oh, we expect to collect corporate tax by 10% increase, but at the same time you're saying the growth is 4%. Tak betul lah, you know not. I'm not. I understand they need to dress up budget because it's a bit of a crystal ball punya, you know, projection issue. But in times of crisis, in times of where we are trying to change things, some honesty is better. Honesty and clarity. Then people say, oh, it's logical. Because if I know, for instance, I'm the minister and I say, oh, next year we're going to collect 100 billion. But I know deep down inside, I can only collect 80. But then I go on and prepare the budget for 100 billion. Susah lah, is disruptive on the targets, achievement and payout and all that kind of thing.
And people will penalize you because you did not meet your revenue targets. Okay, anyway, that's number one.
No, the bankers will penalize you. The economists, the analysts will penalize you lah, because but then they have a 1 year to see the result. I think most people like, oh, last year they cakap berapa? They tend to forget. But to me, I think an honest approach is the best, and to all praise and all tahniah lah, okay, to the government, is they are pushing through a budget responsibility act.
Yes,
that is fantastic.
Finally, right?
Finally, so I think the Madani budget will, together this act that we're going to push through, is going to be debated this week. Sometime I don't know when, and pass. It's fantastic, brother. It's really, you know.
We've been talking about this for 10 years now.
I know, right?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so okay, kita ada inspirasi, ada commitment buat budget responsible. Then show it lah. That's what I'm saying. By Friday, tunjuk lah betul-betul responsible. Otherwise, I will then sakit lah. We have to complain pun susah. Right? Okay. So that's number one. Budget projection must be good. DVAX, development expenditure. You know, we have to borrow 4% interest rate, 4.5% bonds to pay for DVAX. For God's sake, the DVAX must always return in terms of economic multiplier, in terms of profits, in terms of economic generation. Kalau kita pinjam 4%, we have to return 12%. Right? If 4% we return 8, ngam-ngam. Kita bayar interest rate, 4% bayar pokok. Then after 25 years, pokok dah bayar. Okay? But if we do 12%,
Yeah.
Fantastic lah. Then we have actual growth in revenue.
But what planet do we see in the country achieving?
How to achieve this 12%? Ya, memang susah lah. But the first start is, jangan tipu lah, jangan curi lah. Budget tu, no, I mean if it's a 100 million bridge, build for 100 million, janganlah mark up 200 million. Then your 4% also cannot achieve, brother. You understand? Yeah? So I think the government is not supposed to make money. It's not a business. Yeah, but if they borrow at 4, they must deliver 8 so that we can pay the 4 interest rate, boleh bayar, and then the other additional 4 to bayar pokok after 20 years, bayar habis. I think that's what I want to see. DVEX that is priced carefully, open tender, betul-betul buat open tender. I mean, nobody can achieve 12% return lah.
Yeah, okay? But still, if you keep to these principles...
But 8% is the target lah.
Yeah.
So I want discipline. I want transparency, I want accountability, and I want open tender. So those two things. Third one, this is the public lah. Now we balik pada rakyat lah. Sebagai technocrat, kita worry about projection of revenue. We worry about DVEX punya multiplier and the pricing of the DVEX. Now for the people. What is the people going to get? I think for the bottom 40, my understanding Madani, compassionate, you know, to help the poorest, right? Address the poverty issue, then you really need to focus more and more on welfare. Yeah? And then we got to ask our brothers and sisters who are well off to understand that your sacrifice of 5-10% tak dapat subsidi kurang sikit tu is actually helping the one that need it most. And by doing that, I think you can get, I think all races instinctively understand that helping the poor is your duty. You know? But we are not here to help the super rich, the elite, the cronies. What? No, we have to cut that one out. But it needs a sacrifice by the upper middle class a little bit. But in return, what do they get? More safer environment, right? They see their neighbors are doing well, friendlier. You know, that is good. That is really good. To me, that budget has to focus on how to help the poorest. That's it.
Right. Thank you very much. That was YB Wong Chen. If you want to learn more about the conversations that we've just had, you can rewatch this interview on astroawin.com. There's plenty of resources there on the budget as well. You can also watch my show Notepad with me, Ibrahim Sani. Also on all of Astro's platforms, just search for Belanjawan 2024 or Budget 2024 or search my name, Ibrahim Sani, on all our platforms. Until then, thanks very much for joining us. Catch you in the next one.
Hai, saya Huda, kakak fiber anda.